to win our hair. We'll see what we see in the next couple of days as well. So,
We about to win our hair.
a Trump lead, say 3 o'clock in the morning isn't necessarily safe in Pennsylvania because of Philadelphia County primarily. The rest of the state, Trump's got an advantage in it, but that's machine politics, and it works a little bit more slowly, it works a little more gradually, and it looks a bit rougher from the outside, where people are saying, "Why haven't these votes been counted already?" You've got late votes, you've got precincts that take a while to count for whatever reason, you've got anomalies that happen in the counting process, all kinds of things. So people will be watching that one over the next couple of days for sure.
Okay, so AJ, we have a live picture there at the Harris Walls watch party. You said there are indications of 2016 vibes, so to speak, when Hillary Clinton lost. Do you see any of that on the faces of some of these Harris Walls supporters here? Because I want to ask you this. The question going into the night was whether or not we would know
Hillary lost,
a winner in the
and so is
presidential
Kakala
contest tonight. Do you think we will, or will it take till tomorrow morning?
I think it's going to take a day or two before we have somebody where we can say somebody's going to be the winner. I just don't think that we're going to have enough of the count in tonight, especially in those blue wall states, to really figure it out. I think Arizona may take a little bit of time too. It looks a little close from what I'm seeing also. So, between those states, you've got, 55 electoral votes between the four? That's a lot of suspense. So, expecting a winner before you go to bed tonight, I think is a little bit unrealistic. But the trend right now is Donald Trump. It's looking good for him. But, you have to consider that the late votes, that the late counted vote, the mail vote, things like that, that is going to trend Democratic. And, so any margin that Trump has at, 10:41 Eastern time may not hold, when we wake up in the morning.
Let's talk about Detroit. I want to talk about Michigan. We talk so much about some of these southern states, and we've been talking about Pennsylvania. Let's talk about Michigan. And I'm going to just kind of zoom in on Detroit here, because that's one of the largest Arab American populations in the country. When we focus in and we go in on what is, and let's just make sure we get this correct here, we're focusing in on the area where Detroit is. So Wayne County is what we're talking about here, AG. So right now, Wayne County is showing that Trump is up 61% to 37.5%. We're talking about Trump having a commanding victory so far with 24% of the votes in. 24% may not sound like a lot, but what do you make of what we're seeing out of this county so far?
Boston them cheeks.
It really comes down to the precincts that are coming in, because a county in and of itself isn't necessarily the thing. There are precincts in the counties that will tell you what the real story is that's happening. And, when you're watching that precinct data being dumped in, that can move these totals. And we've got these margins as thin as they are in Michigan. You get 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 votes dumped in. And if they're D plus 80, that makes a remarkable difference in the narrative.
So we do have some race calls we do want to get to right now here on the presidential level. Let's go to Kansas right now, AG in Austin. So you see there Trump getting Kansas's 6 electoral votes. The Associated Press calling Kansas for former President Donald Trump here. Let's stay in the Midwest. We also have a race call there in the Hawkeye state of Iowa. Iowa, 6 electoral votes going to Donald Trump there over Harris with 56% of estimated votes counted. Now, this is really interesting because we got to dive into some of the numbers there in Iowa, because there was this poll that was put out over the weekend
This
by
country
Ann
just
Seltzer.
ain't
She's
ready
considered
yet.
the
That's
gold
all it
standard
is.
there, of polling
Let's get
millions
it.
in Iowa,
Trump gonna win.
in Austin.
Hit that like
She
button.
had
Hit that like button.
Harris winning
Y'all know
Iowa
Trump gonna win.
9-3 in her poll. She even considered her poll an outlier.
Thanks for
EG,
joining.
but
Be sure to
obviously
hit
we're
that
not
like
seeing
button.
that here. Trump getting
Trump
the state.
2025,
It's a pretty
baby.
sizable margin so far, more than half of votes counted.
Yeah, the Trump campaign said that, they tell people look at the
Busting her
Emerson poll,
ass right
which is more
now.
of a
She don't know what
10-point
to
poll.
do. That's
Seltzer
right. Hit that like
poll,
button.
the
Press 1 in the
methodology
chat
seemed
for
really
Trump.
weird to me. And this idea that there's this groundswell of women in this very conservative state that elected Kim Reynolds governor and all of that guys move over to Harris. It didn't make a lot of sense. But you know, when you look
Trump
at polls, you
2025,
notice, it's
baby.
it
That's
comes
who
down
I'm
to your
voting
sample
for.
size. It comes down to your random pick. So you got 600, 800,000 people.
Who y'all voting for?
Not all those people are created equal. So it looks like a real sampling error from Selzer. Back to the drawing board.
I know who gonna win.
You know, every presidential race has really wild polls. And this just happened to be
Come on,
one
be
of
sure to
them.
share that like.
And it raised questions about Iowa, but I don't think those questions were legitimate. Obviously, voters did what we expected them to do before this election, leaving aside that Selzer poll.
So,
That's what's up.
AG,
Congratulations
as I zoom in
on that,
the
bro.
map here, we're starting to see that almost every single
Come on, help me out with this
battleground
algorithm,
fight,
though.
every single
So hit that like
battleground
button.
that has
Subscribe.
results, save for Nevada, which we do not have results in for yet. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona. None of them have been called in Trump's favor yet. All
Appreciate
of them
it,
so
mate.
far are they're light red. They are leaning red right now.
That bleeding red. It's looking crazy out there. It's looking like a bloody mess.
We saw so many discussions out there saying that this race would be as close as it possibly could.
Yeah, Cali already gonna be blue.
Is
Cali
this
and New York
something
gonna be
that's
blue, and
fascinating
even
to you
Hawaii.
as we're
Hawaii
seeing this
gonna be
night
blue too.
progress? I mean, Georgia, North Carolina, we have over 80% of the vote tallied. Over 60% of the votes.
That's the
has
South.
been
That's
tallied
gonna be
in
red.
Pennsylvania. Michigan has just about a quarter of the votes tallied, and over 50% of the votes tallied in Wisconsin, as well as half of the votes tallied in Arizona. Out of those 6 battlegrounds,
We winning
AG,
this shit.
what's standing out to you?
I mean, to me, it really is the trend. And you know, you have to ask yourself right now, who would you rather be, Trump or Harris?
I'd rather have
Trump,
Team Trump.
basically, his strategy of going all over the place, campaigning everywhere, taking all kinds of questions,
No.
even from adversarial media, it seems to have paid off. And you know, I think voters are responding to
It's
the
gonna be what it's gonna be
authenticity,
though at the end of
to
the
the
day.
viscerality of the Trump campaign, to the approach, you know, and to the central question: are you better off 4 years ago? Trump weaved that question in over and over again.
I know damn well we was better off 4 years
And,
ago.
You know, many of these voters in these states, Michigan, Wisconsin, you know.
Thanks for
so
joining. Thanks for hitting that
you know,
like button.
They looked at their pocketbooks or bank balances or credit cards, and they said, no, we're not.
Who y'all want to win?
And, you know, I think Harris not doing press conferences, kind of doing these parachuting in, doing these scripted rallies, I don't think that helped her. I think voters really wanted a connection, especially after the 2020 pandemic election where, you know, Joe Biden basically campaigned from his basement. You know, Harris did a version of that. And the voters seem to be rewarding Donald Trump here.
So, AG, let's just transition briefly here to
that's the whole
some of these
fact, though.
Senate contests and some of these Western battlegrounds as well here. We're getting results in on the Arizona Senate race. Let's take this. Ruben Gallego up over Lake 53 to 46 right now with 49% of estimated votes counted. If we can also bring up the Montana Senate race too between Sheehy and Tester, just so we can get a good lowdown of where that race stands at the moment. Let's take that.
I ain't having it.
There you see Sheehy up 56 over Tester's 42 there, about 5% of estimated votes counted. So Montana still has a long way to go there. But these are the Senate races to watch still now that we're moving our way westward across the country, though. Some of the other races, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, those Senate seats, they're still in the mix. They haven't been called yet, at least by the Associated Press, AG.
Yeah, and, you know, Republicans need to flip a couple of these. And even if you go back to 2022, they're saying that 24 would be their year for the Senate. And they've got a lot of opportunities. And I think as Trump rises or falls, you know, so too does the Senate candidates.
Bro, it's looking like my nigga gonna win. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all.
Swing states where you had Senate races, you know, the cans to run a couple points behind Trump. So if Trump can win these states by 2 or 3 points, that's very good for a Dave McCormick or Eric Hovde or somebody like that. I think if you look at Montana, I think, you know, Trump's strength is going to lift Sheehy in that race. I don't think Kerry Lake has a shot per se. The polls I saw of Arizona had a lot of split ticket between Trump and Gallego. But, you know, overall, if Republicans can pick
Who
up
voted
a couple of these
today?
Democratic seats, you know, then it's a very good night because they probably will take the House also.
Let me know if y'all
But you
voted.
can see a unified Republican Washington, D.C. next year, and Donald Trump would be able to enact a lot of this policy agenda that he was thwarted, from doing during his first term, if he's elected.
So AG, if
Not
we
if,
come back
when.
onto my screen here, I want to just show
Boy, it's
the
cracking
Senate
her.
that the balance of
You got
power
201.
is behind me here, and this is giving us a look at how this thing is shaping out. So right now, and obviously you need 50 seats. in
Kamala
order
wins. I'm
to have
leaving.
control of
I'm
the
moving
Senate
out of the
if
United
the
States my
president
damn self.
is Donald Trump, because that would mean that J.D. Vance would be the tiebreaker. That would give Republicans control. That would mean they would only need 50. Now, if they want control, regardless of who wins the presidency, they would need 51. Let's tease this out, AG. There are quite a few competitive Senate races around the country: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. As you mentioned, it's not as competitive in Arizona as it once was. Montana, we are seeing that John Tester has a steep uphill battle. Is there really any path to the Democrats maintaining control in the upper chamber at this point?
Not with the way this map is going. It's going to be very difficult, and I think you would need for the Senate candidates to really outperform Harris in state after state. My guess right now is 52, 53 Republican seats, and that's really what you want if you're the Republicans, because it's very hard to maintain a unified caucus in the House or the Senate. So you want that margin to be a couple points higher than just a 50-50 split with Vance casting a bunch of tie-breaking votes.
Thanks for joining, y'all. Sure, hit that like button,
it's
subscribe.
really early to tell with these Senate races, but I'm less confident in those than I am in Trump right now. But I really do think Trump is the rising tide that will lift some of these Senate candidates up.
Okay, so in the meantime, AG Gankarski with the New York Post, we're going to have to leave it at that. We do appreciate it. We are nearing the top of the hour. Also, Westfall here in the Live Now newsroom with me. In the meantime, though, speaking of some of these Senate races, I want to put up some of the results. Let's go back to Virginia right now. Take a look at this. Democratic incumbent Tim Kaine there leading over his Republican challenger, Hung Kao. You see there. We also have Tim Kaine speaking live right now to his rally group of supporters. Let's listen.
Embody and by the progress that you've demonstrated. So it's going to be a long night. We're going to have, however all these results go outside Virginia, we're going to have a lot of work to do. We're going to have a lot of work to do to promote more peace in the world. We're going to have a lot of work to do to create this economy that is not just for a few, but for the many, and expand healthcare options and protect.
Many, if y'all motherfuckers wasn't giving all the motherfucking money to Ukraine, we would have some money.
And battle for a cleaner environment. And there's so much work to do. But
There's always so much work to do. There ain't never enough dollars, though.
We can walk side by side.
No, these motherfuckers print the shit.
We can walk side by side with people and make progress. So thank you so much for putting your faith in me, and you may or may not, over the course of the next 6 years, agree or disagree with this or that, but I won't embarrass you. I won't let you down. I won't cause you to lose a moment of sleep, and we will keep moving Virginia and this country forward. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And then watch TV very late, and we're gonna go win, right? We're gonna go win.
All right, just listening in there to Tim Kaine wrapping up some of the speaking to reporters. You can see there the 52-48 margin right now. Not officially called by the AP, but a happy crowd on the hand there in that state of Virginia. All right, we're following it all here on Live Now from Fox. A change of anchor. I'm Andy back now in the desk, supplanting Andrew Kraft after a great election night for him, covering all the latest. All right, let's continue on. Let's line away for a quick 2-minute break. We have more polls closing here at the top of the hour as it gets closer to 8 o'clock Pacific time. We'll be
there, it's me, Winona Earp of the Demon Killin' Herbs. I'm currently on a road trip with my main tip, Doc Holliday.
I will never break a promise to my girl. We are Tennessee bound.
As for Purgatory, there are more tales to tell.
Dealing with a witch here. Feel like I forget to do something. Alexa,
Did I lock the front door? Front door is locked.
my Echo friends have my bag.
Stevie Wonder, one of the greatest musicians ever to walk this planet.
He could define our own reality. That album taught me to dream.
This is the wonder of Stevie.
This ain't the wonder of Stevie, it's the wonder of creepy. No. The fuck is this?
Welcome back from here to Live Now from Fox here on this election night. Thank you so much for joining us. 900,000 people tuning in across all of our streaming platforms. So we appreciate you joining us as we're approaching the top of the hour. 8 o'clock on the West Coast is nearing very closely right now. Let's continue on. I do want to put up just some of these Live Now looks, including at Howard University, the Kamala Harris watch party getting going. The vibes there still very high as well, despite what we're seeing in the polls right now, and also in West Palm Beach, Florida, a live look there with all the American flags. Plenty of people excited for this as we're soon to have polls close in California.
Civil War!
And Washington. Let's continue on. Let's bring in again my colleague here, Austin Westfall, to discuss the latest of what we're seeing from this on the West Coast. Austin, thank you so much for joining us. So what
I might
we're
move
looking
to
at
Peru,
now,
man.
What we expect here is polls close in just a matter of minutes on the West Coast.
Good to be with you, Andy Mack, and props to our colleague Andrew Kraft for a 5-hour-long marathon, manning the controls there. Let's get into the maps. So, here's what we're talking about. We're going to be watching some of these West Coast states now. At this point, polls are going to be closing.
West Coast.
And it looks like we had a misstep
So,
there.
to anybody on the
Polls
West
are
Coast
gonna
right
be
now.
Closing in states like California, Oregon, and Washington at the top of the hour. We do, of course, unless something completely surprising happens, we do expect that those 3 states will fall in the blue category. Now, what's going to be interesting, though, about these states is in the House. We haven't really been checking in on the balance of power in the House so far. The magic number is 218, Andy Mack. Right now, the Republicans have secured 152 of those seats, Democrats, 98. Why am I talking about this on the West Coast? That's because
That
there
shit's
are
important.
tons of toss-up races all along this coast. So many of them in California. There's one specifically in southwestern Washington. That's going to be a particularly close one. Bend, Oregon has a close toss-up race. California's Central Valley, parts of Southern California, there's 5 House seats in California alone, currently owned by the GOP, but they're considered to be complete toss-up races. That's why it's
Yeah.
as the
Be
weeks
sure to
developed,
join.
it's been
The
much
like button,
tougher for
subscribe,
pundits
turn on them
to
notifications.
forecast who may control the House. There are so
They ain't
many
gotta
tight
do any of
races,
that.
and another
Just
thing
hit
to
that like
mention
button.
about
That's all
Sandy
I'm
Mac
asking.
is that not only are these going to be super tight, but if they're as tight as they have been in years past, it could be so close that it could take days, if not.
But if
over
y'all
a
do
week
hit that like
to get some
button,
of these things done.
I would greatly
That's the
appreciate
House.
it.
A lot to get
And if
to.
y'all do
Let's
subscribe,
talk about the
I would
Senate
fuck with y'all.
seat in California.
Like y'all
We're
fucks
expecting
with
that
me.
one potentially close without a shift. The Democrat there going up against Republican Steve Garvey. What do we make of this, and what is kind of the outlook on this in the Senate,
Yeah.
and how does it the balance of power factor in all of this in California?
So, ultimately, as far as the question of balance of power goes, we don't expect California to make any seismic shifts with the balance of power. We don't consider this race to be a toss-up like we do in Pennsylvania Michigan, Wisconsin, states of that nature. California is an interesting one, as you can see. That might be a familiar name to some people. Steve Garvey, he was a first baseman. He played for the Dodgers. He played for the Padres and mostly the 70s and the 80s. He is running as a Republican against Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff led the charge on the impeachment process during Trump's first impeachment. As soon as polls close, we may get an early call in this race. Of course, any statewide race in California,
come on, y'all,
would be expected.
Hit that like button. Help me out with the algorithm.
No results from the Associated Press as of right now, and it looks like the clock just hit 8 p.m. on the West Coast. So
West Coast.
Polls closing. We should start to see some color, Andy Mack, in some of these states here shortly.
Yeah, and then the colors will start lighting up any minute now. As you mentioned, just the 8 o'clock hour there, as we're continuing to follow it on the West Coast as we're moving east
and I'll mention, it just happened right now, just as we were speaking. So Washington, and there we go. So we're seeing some of these Senate races. Washington, as soon as the polls close, and this is just how reliably blue these states are. I'm going to just guess. Zero, yes, there's zeros on these. There's probably zeros on California as well.
Hit that like button,
That's because
subscribe.
the AP has such confidence in these states. As soon as results start coming in, they're going to be so overwhelmingly blue that they feel comfortable calling these races as soon as the results start coming through. So, Adam Schiff, going to be the senator in California for 6 years, and it appears there as Washington as well. We're going to see so no numbers there as well, but still, Maria Cantwell going to be starting off her 6-year Senate tenure in the state of Washington, Andy.
All right, very, very interesting. West Coast, we're following it very closely. Also, we're going to check back in with you over the course of the evening as we've had over the last several hours as well, but we appreciate your time. Let's get out to more different conversations here as we're hearing now west to east, as I do want to put up just this. One of the most recent calls there in Idaho being called for the president, Donald Trump, as well. So I do want to put up just this, those 4 electoral votes going for Donald Trump.
4 more.
Idaho, 4 electoral
Just got 4
votes.
more.
Kind of the balance of power as we talk about all those electoral votes being cast up. So we're hearing different ones about Nebraska. You know about the split one there with that. But also in Maine, we're talking about. All right, and we're also getting more about Washington as well. So let's continue to follow the latest here, as you can see just the excitement within this watch party there in West Palm Beach in Florida.
Roll one up if y'all voting for Trump.
Maybe see some of these results come in themselves, see the excitement of there, as instead on the other side in the watch party at Howard University, it is Kamala Harris eventually getting the decision, 12 electoral votes in her favor going for the Vice President Kamala Harris on the West Coast. As you did hear from Austin Westfall, those going blue very, very quickly. The blue for Washington, we just see it go blue for Oregon. Let's bring it Austin one more time here as we're getting this about this. What do we make of this decision? And give me a breakdown of this here, Austin.
Yeah, just like the Senate, just like we were just talking about, as soon as the polls closed, the AP feels confident enough to call these western states in favor of Harris. California has the most electoral votes in the country. We're talking about 54 votes coming from California alone. Washington is going to have 12 electoral votes. Oregon not being called yet. It's likely blue. Let's go in and let's see what we're working with here. Looks like Harris is up by just over 21%. That's with 44% of the votes counted. It looks like the AP not feeling quite as confident as they are in Washington and California about Oregon, but nonetheless, Harris with a dominant lead in Oregon as well. So what does that say for the electoral count at large? Now that California's huge swath of votes has been added, that jumps Harris up to 179. Trump at 214. That means Trump is 56 votes away from claiming the presidency. Harris looks like she is roughly 91 votes away from the presidency. While we're at it, Andy, let's look at the battlegrounds again. Let's just do a swing through all the states that very well could make or break this race. Wisconsin. Now we're at 60% of the votes tabulated. Trump appearing to have just over a 2% lead in Wisconsin. Neighboring Michigan. Michigan was leaning blue not too long ago. Now it looks like it's leaning red, and Trump is up by over 4%. That's with 28% of the votes counted. So that is we just saw it update a little bit. It looks like Trump might have gained a little bit of ground slightly there. 28, just over 1/4 of the votes counted in Michigan. Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes at stake. This one was a tight one for quite some time. And now it looks like as more and more votes are tabulated, we're nearing 3/4 of the votes being tabulated. 70% of the votes in Pennsylvania have been tallied. And right now, former President Trump has just over
we need
a
Pennsylvania
3%
right now.
lead over the vice president.
We
That's
need Pennsylvania.
a major state right there. And that's a lead that Trump has with only 30% of the vote left that Harris can make up. North Carolina, the Tar Heel state. Again, the AP has not called any of these battleground states yet. But 87% of the vote
Come on,
has
we
been
need North
tabulated in
Carolina,
North
and
Carolina.
we definitely need
Trump has just
fucking
under
Pennsylvania.
a 3% lead over the vice president. Let's bring you out to Georgia, where we're seeing 90% of the vote tallied, and Trump, he's got a 3-point lead above the vice president. Let's head out west. Nevada, not reporting anything in as far as the Associated Press is telling us so far. That's the one battleground.
This shit's about
we
to be
haven't heard
crazy.
yet, but Arizona, still at exactly the point it was the last time we checked on it. Exactly 50% of the vote tallied. Right now, Trump with a 0.2 of a point lead over Harris, Andy.
All right, that is very, very interesting. A good breakdown here as we enter a new hour just to get everyone up to speed on those 7 key battleground states. All right, Alice, we're going to be checking back in with you in just a little bit, but I do want to give you that roundup of some of what we're looking at in some of those states along the West Coast, including in Arizona, including in California, Washington, and Oregon. I do want to just put these up, a full roundup of what we saw on the West Coast. This one in California being called for Kamala Harris in terms of this and that 54 big electoral votes.
We knew Kelly was gonna go for
in terms of that. Also in Washington as well,
and New York.
electoral votes going to Kamala Harris, and then also in Oregon as well, going for Kamala Harris. And I also want to talk now about California, as we're learning that information about the Senate, a key race with Dianne Feinstein's seat being open, the late Dianne Feinstein, as it's one going for Adam Schiff over Steve Garvey, the former Dodger, the former Padre. Adam Schiff moving chambers from the House to the Senate as he takes over that seat. So big news in terms of the Senate as the Democrats, they keep that seat blue. We'll talk more about the balance of power and everything to do with it. But let's continue on. Let's find a way for a quick 2-minute break. We'll get you more live pictures, different speeches. We're expecting to hear from Adam Schiff, likely Steve Garvey, within the hour, just based on the fact that this was called so quickly after polls closed there in that state. We'll have much more here on Live Now from Fox. We'll be right back.
You want to watch Thursday Night Football like a pro?
Break time. Got to do anything, do it now.
Next-gen stats uses AI technology to bring analytics and insights to life. Prime Vision includes features like player labels, route trees, and defensive alerts, which identify potential blitzers before the snap. Now you'll know what happens before it actually happens. Then again, you probably already did. Watch Thursday Night Football. Prime Vision.
Greetings happen.
Hi, cutie.
Yeah, that's not good happens. Huge things happen. Home happens. Be there with Ring. Learn more at ring.com.
Hey there, it's me, Winona Earp of the Demon Killing Herbs. I'm currently on a road trip with Doc Holliday.
We are Tennessee bound.
As for Purgatory, there are more tales to tell.
Weird.
$1,000 check.
An Amazon Pharmacy, your medication is guided by a licensed pharmacist and delivered straight to your door on your time.
All right, welcome back in year two, live now from Fox on election night, just past 11 o'clock on the East Coast, as we continue to follow the latest in terms of the balance of power and the race for the White House. And I do want to talk now about the Senate race in Ohio. No call as of yet, but Bernie Moreno leading in a big way over the 30-term incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown, some 300,000 votes, just under 300,000 votes. A lead for Bernie Moreno. We do see him speaking to the crowd of supporters in Westlake, Ohio. Let's take you out to this right here on Live at Fox.
Leadership. When President Trump and J.D. Vance in the White House, we are going to advance an agenda that is an American agenda. An agenda that says we're pro-immigration, but not pro-invasion. We're going to make certain that the people who come to this country are invited here like I was, like my family was, on our terms. We're going to make this country an energy-dominant nation so that my kids do not grow up in a country where we ever rely on a foreign nation for energy ever again. And we have that energy right here in Ohio. That means coal, that means natural gas, it means oil, and it means nuclear. And in terms of EV mandates, they need to be gone first thing in January. And we're going to make certain that we tell California, you don't get to dictate to the whole country what our emission standards are. We're going to dictate that at the federal level. We're going to allow consumers to pick the kind of car they want. Look, the other piece that I want to talk about is what President Trump has brought to this country, which is peace and stability around the world. America will be a leader in the world. Will always be a leader in the world. American leadership has made the planet safer, more prosperous, and more secure than at any point in human history. But it means that we ensure peace through strength. The weakness of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is rejected, and I know that from whether it's in Jerusalem or Kiev or anywhere else on earth or Taiwan, they're cheering this election because they know American strength will ensure peace around the world. And if you're a police officer in this country, just know you have a senator in me and a Republican Party that will always have your back. And we got rid of Chuck Schumer tonight, but pretty soon we're going to get rid of another couple people that need to be gone. First among them, Randy Weingarten should start packing her bags. Because what we need in this country is school choice for all Americans. And then as I look at my children, I'm blessed with 4 kids. And by the way, can we give my wife an amazing round of applause, please? Thank you, Bridget. Bridget. Look, we need to make certain that we honor teachers. They're doing great work in every...
You're just listening in there as they were talking with Bernie Moreno, talking in very excited terms, optimistic terms, although the AP has yet to call that race in his favor. It is looking to be a margin that continues to grow for Moreno over Sherrod Brown, the 3-term incumbent Democrat there in that state of Ohio, as this one will flip from blue to red likely as soon as that's called. But that is what we're following right now, is that they moved off the shot. But we do have another shot here on Live Now from Fox on the election night in Arizona, another key battleground state of what we're following here in Arizona. I want to put up this post from Ruben Gallego, the Democrat from Arizona, saying, shout out to poll workers across Arizona who show up early, stay late, and keep our democracy running smoothly. Your dedication to every single vote is a testament to our state's strength. Let's take you out to this, the speech from him to supporters in Arizona. Let's listen into this live.
Everyone, what Al gave him, who cannot be here today. He gave it to me because when I went to college, I couldn't afford to buy a new suit. So he gave me one of his. When I got to college, I saw all the kids were happy because they were just happy to be there, happy to be at Harvard. I was happy because I finally got a bed. In college, one of my beds was cleaning the bathrooms of fellow Harvard students, scrubbing the toilets of the kids I had to see the next day. But I did it all proudly, because I believed that if I worked hard and followed the rules, even a poor kid would succeed in America. That's America. And after that, I decided I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to serve my country, the country that gave my family a chance to live the American dream, the greatest country in the world. So I enlisted in the infantry of the United States Marine Corps. I know there's some out there. I had the honor of fighting alongside my brothers in Iraq in Lima Company 325, assigned to Al-Anbar, Iraq. They called us Lucky Lima at first, but unfortunately, eventually our luck ran out. Our company saw some of the hardest days of the war. And those were tough days. But the fight for my brothers was always worth it. And so was this fight for Arizona. We had a mantra on this campaign. Go everywhere and talk to everyone. And that's exactly what we did. We didn't take one vote for granted. For many candidates, Latinos and Native American voters are the afterthought. But they were part of our outreach from day one. We worked to earn every vote. And we didn't write off our Republican brothers and sisters either. For 22 months, I traveled all around this state. The thing I learned is that we have so much in common. Because whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, we all want the same thing, a better life for our kids, and to give our kids a better future. It's just that simple. And that's exactly why I'm here. I believe in the American dream. And I want everyone else to have the same opportunity to make it that I had. I'm here tonight because I believe women should also be able to make their own decisions about their own bodies. I'm here because costs are still too high. And I understand how hard it is to work just to bring home enough to pay the bills, to pay the rent, and maybe, just maybe, save up a little. I understand the dignity of work, of trying to put 40, 60, 80 hours together to try and make a life for your kids. But there are too many people in Washington, D.C. who don't understand that kind of hard work and who don't actually respect that work. They don't understand what it means to actually struggle every day and still believe the next day is going to be better. Look, it looks like this race won't be called tonight. But one result is already coming through and clear. We fought for Arizona. We held after Arizona. Even though our race isn't over yet, I still want to thank all Arizonans who supported me, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. And to those who didn't, I want you to know that regardless of who you voted for today, I will stand up and fight for you. As hard as I fought to get out of poverty, as hard as I fight now for my family, as hard as I fought in the Marine Corps, I will be fighting for you in Washington, D.C. To my dad, my mom, my sisters, my aunts, my cousins, and they're all here. We're a big Latino family. I will always have your back, because you always had my back. And to Sydney, Michael, Isla, who always gave me a reason to fight, I will keep fighting. To my Lima Company Marines, the men I patrol with in Iraq, the men I went to the hardest days of war with, and came back to a country that had forgotten us. John, Andy, and Justin, we're here tonight. I love your brothers. Number 5, I always have your back. To my campaign team, to all the volunteers and our supporters, to the unions and the community groups who stood in front lines with us the whole time, Thank you. So for the veterans out there suffering from PTSD, for the single moms working 2 jobs and raising 3 kids, for the dads who have to miss that bedtime for their kids to work that overnight shift, and for the kid sleeping on the floor tonight in Arizona, dreaming of a better future, this is for you. Gracias, Arizona.
We were just listening in there to Ruben Gallego talking to a crowd of supporters, noting that it would likely not be called tonight just based on the protocols in place in that state, but a very confident, optimistic person there speaking at that rally there in Arizona. I do want to put up just the number of votes, the sizable margin he leads over Kerry Lake at this point. Some 7-point lead right now, so no call as of tonight. He admitted that such, but a sizable lead for him this evening. But we do want to get you out to some calls in terms of the race for the White House in some very key battleground states. This one in North Carolina going in favor of Trump as Trump takes the key battleground state of North Carolina, 50% to 48%. Just over 100,000 votes as Trump, the AP calling this almost 90% of the votes counted, tallied at this point. Another battleground state not called at this point, but in favor of the former president in a significant way, 51% to 48.3% as well. And we want to put up this, a post from our Fox 5 team. Eric Perry saying, breaking, Donald Trump has an insurmountable lead with a number of votes outstanding. That a quote from the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, during a late night briefing. So some big news, and let's continue on. Let's bring in my colleague right now, Austin Westfall, to discuss what this means moving forward, because this is a big development in terms of the race for this White House. Austin, North Carolina going for the former President Donald Trump, and Raffensperger saying an insurmountable lead for Trump in Georgia. How pivotal is this moment for Trump?
Raffensperger saying that is very important. The AP has not officially called the race yet, so we can't officially call it ourselves here. A live look at the Trump watch party where we've been watching. There's been a lot of smiling faces. We have been keeping an eye on both of these watch parties. Here's how the map is looking now that we're getting some of these pertinent race calls in. This is the first battleground state that's officially been called. That puts Donald Trump up to 230. He's 40 away
Oh
from
shit!
the presidency.
Let's go!
179. Let's take a look.
10 more
North
bitches.
Carolina, solidly red at this point. We've been saying all night, Trump's easiest path to victory is North Carolina, which he has now. Georgia, which with 90% of the votes in, he has almost a 3-point lead. So, North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania. So, if he gets these 3
It's
states
over. It's over.
and every other state,
It's fucking
all the way
over.
expected to, that means that former President Trump will become president again. The only
Little
time that's ever
gray,
happened
little
before
orange
was
red gonna
Obama
be
was
president
22nd,
again. Let's
24th
go.
president of the United States. So, North Carolina getting called. I'm watching Pennsylvania closely now. I'm watching Georgia closely now. Again, 9/10 of all the votes have been counted in Georgia. He's got almost 3 points up. Pennsylvania, just over 3/4 of the vote now tallied. Trump has, and right now we're looking at just about a 3-point lead out of PA as well. So Trump has leads in 2 absolutely crucial states. And I'm not even mentioning the fact that he has leads right now in Wisconsin, 66% of the votes in. Right now, Trump has about a 3-point advantage there. Michigan, fewer of those votes counted. About a third of them are in so far. But Donald Trump right now with a sizable lead over Kamala Harris. That one looking like it's just over a 6-point advantage. We go over to Arizona. It's very possible we don't hear any more results in from them for the rest of the night. They've been stuck at 50%. Nonetheless, that's at a dead tie right now. It's very possible, Andy, the way this is playing out, though, we might not need to worry about Arizona. We're going to keep an eye, specifically right now, on Georgia and PA. now that North Carolina's been called.
Yeah, it's a very good breakdown of all of the come. And of course, North Carolina, Georgia, insurmountable leads. In Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan might be too close to call at this point, just based on the margin there. All right, Austin, we're going to check back in with you in just a little bit, but let's give you some live now looks inside of some of these watch parties there.
I ain't never been so
West
fucking
Palm
happy
Beach,
to see an
Florida.
election.
You can see the excitement growing, building in that room as they are monitoring this in real time, as we are as well. Also there in Washington, D.C. at the Kamala HQ.
Get mad.
On the campus of Howard University here on
Get mad.
We're monitoring it all very, very closely. And also the race for the White House, other props coming up. We're going to have more on some of the down ballot races, some of those measures, amendments in place and across this country. We'll have that and much more. You're live now.
The boys is getting
Sarah
mad.
and Amy out window shopping spot a killer vintage dress. Size hiccup? No worries. Sarah takes a pic and uses the Amazon app to find similar styles, ensuring a perfect surprise. Friendship and fashion, seamlessly tailored with Amazon Lens.
I don't like when my music blocks out the world around me. Open ear audio allows me to take in those natural sounds while also experiencing the soundtrack that I choose to put on.
Get dewy skin with me for fall.
All right, we'll back in here to our election night coverage on Live Now from Fox. I'm the host, Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to give you a couple Live Now looks there in Washington, D.C. at the Kamala Harris watch party taking place on the campus of Howard University. And also in West Palm Beach, Florida, you can see just some of the excitement in the eyes of some of these viewers just approaching midnight on the East Coast. All right, we're also monitoring the latest inside some of these different polling locations, some of these tabulation centers, including in Gwinnett County in Georgia, as we were hearing from Brad Raffensperger talking about potentially an insurmountable lead for the former President Donald Trump. But they will continue on late into the night there. All right, let's talk more about the race for the White House, but other amendments, proposals on the table in different states. Let's bring in right now my colleague, Christina Evans. Christina, thank you so much for joining us. Break it all down for me. What are we seeing in some of these votes and some of these props around the country?
Absolutely, Andy Mack. So again, right now in the Live Now Social Center, I want to show you what things are looking like from my vantage point. We're keeping up with some of those storylines that you may not see on the regular news. This is some stuff that we're seeing on social media. And when it comes to social media, you have to talk about some of those conversations that pertain to abortion. Let's go ahead and take a look here on the screen. You can see this race call from the Associated Press. Voters in Maryland did accept a ballot measure to enshrine protection for abortion enshrined in the state's constitution. Now, this is a big deal because Marylanders did vote to protect reproductive rights. Abortion is already legal there in the state, but by approving the amendment, voters have made it extremely difficult for lawmakers in the future to pass a law that could limit reproductive care without violating the state constitution. Now, we all know that with some of these younger voters, again, with Gen Z and other places, abortion has been a huge measure that they have been following. I want to show you another one that we have here is a post on X from Fox 5 New York. New York voters also passed Proposition 1 in their state. This meant that the amendment is designed to protect abortion rights and other civil liberties that will now be enshrined as well in the state's constitution. This is all according to the Associated Press. Some of this news coming out. The final state that I want to hit on right now, when it pertains to abortion, voters in Colorado have also approved a constitutional amendment to enshrine abortion protection there in their state as well. So it's important here for Colorado. This measure did win the necessary 55% of the vote to pass, and it is already a regional hub as well for abortion access in that part of the country, because many folks who do end up traveling there if abortion is banned in their state. So again, on social media, we've been seeing reactions to this storyline as folks are finding out if their state will enshrine abortion protection in the Constitution. Happening now, we know, in 3 states, New York, Maryland, and Colorado. But we are continuing to track stories just like this on our social media pages. Make sure you follow us on Live Now Fox. It's on all platforms, including TikTok, where we have been continuing to keep you updated with some of the other storylines that we're following and seeing there online.
All right, thank you so much, Christina. So important for so many people, and we're glad you shined the light on some of these propositions as well. We appreciate your time doing a great job back there in the social media center.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy.
All right, thanks so much. All right, let's continue on. Let's give you a wrap up of some of what we're seeing in terms of some of those propositions. The Amendment 79 in Colorado in favor, yes, the right to abortion. So we're following it very, very closely. Significant portion, over 1,000,003 voting in favor of that. Also in New York, in Proposal 1, talking about equal protection, 3 million people cast the ballot, so 63 to 37 in favor of that. And also the right to abortion in Maryland. Coming back to that question one more time. Question 1 for it is almost 2 million people casting their ballot, a significant margin in terms of this there in Maryland. All right, so we're following the latest here on Live Now from Fox in terms of all of this, the race for the White House, and much, much more. I do want to talk about another West Coast state that was recently called for Vice President Kamala Harris. Right here, you can see Oregon going in favor of her. So a blue West Coast, not unusual, not surprising as well, but Harris being called there for Oregon. All right, let's continue on, because we're talking about different tabulation centers, different votes being tallied across the country. We're having live now looks inside of different locations. This one, I believe, in Harris County, Texas. Let's bring in right now to the conversation for more on it. We want to bring in Chris Mandy, Director at the Center for Election Innovation and Research. Chris, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox on this election night. It feels like we're having a pretty smooth election night. What is your focus? What are you seeing around the country in terms of the tabulation, in terms of these votes being counted?
I think we've had a remarkably smooth election day and all the period up to it, with early voting going remarkably well. We haven't really seen any problems, looking very carefully around the country for any potential issues. The only things we've seen are the kinds of things that we expect. We had a polling place open late in Maricopa County, Arizona, because the person who was supposed to unlock the door forgot the key in the morning. We had a few places around the country where they had technology glitches in the morning, and that led to lines, but all of those were quickly resolved. Of course, we have had some extraordinarily unusual events. The bomb threats that the FBI has identified as coming from foreign actors, very likely from Russia, that disrupted voting in Georgia and led to polling place delays. There were similar threats made via social media in other states that were quickly dismissed and didn't interrupt voting. And as we get into the counting, things have gone remarkably smoothly. Probably the most high-profile event happened in Milwaukee, where they had to start over with counting. It was clearly a mistake, but in my opinion, they handled it exactly right. They discovered the mistake and they were transparent about it. They talked to the Republicans, they talked to the Democrats, and they decided to start over so that everybody knew the process worked from beginning to end.
Let's talk about Pennsylvania. So right now, as we look at the electoral map, we're focusing on 2 states that haven't been called on the East Coast right now. We're looking at specifically Georgia, which has, I should say, Chris, 91% of the votes tabulated right now. Trump with just under a 3% lead in that state. Still 9% of the votes to be tallied. But really what I'm curious to ask you about is Pennsylvania. We still got 23% of the votes to be counted in Pennsylvania, and Donald Trump's lead appears to be increasing. How are votes tabulated in Pennsylvania? What's the rules? What's the procedures? And how quickly could they get their process done this morning?
It is going to take them a while. So the key thing to know about Pennsylvania is they are one of the few states that are not allowed to do anything with mail ballots until this morning, until Election Day. So they get those mail ballots, they can't check the voter signature, they can't check that information to make sure it's a valid ballot, they can't take it out of the envelope, they can't even begin the counting process. Now, all of that checking to make sure that the ballot is valid is the longest part. It's the part we want people to be careful about. And so that's why it's going to take a while. They are going to be much better than 2020. There are fewer ballots, and they have made changes, but election officials, Democrats and Republicans all across the state of Pennsylvania asked the legislature to allow them to start, like almost every other state does, a day or several days before election day, before today, and that didn't happen. The legislature didn't make that change. So they're going to be counting all the way through the night, through tomorrow, possibly into Thursday. Different folks are estimating when they'll be done at different times. But they started way behind everybody, so they're playing catch up. Election officials all over that state are going as fast as they can, but it's going to take them a while.
All right, that is very good to know, and good protocols in place to make sure that all these votes are counted. I do want to go back to what you mentioned about what was happening in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, those 30,000 votes that needed to be counted once more just due to a snafu, as one of the city commissioners talking about it earlier on today. And I do want to ask you just about the transparency, because we did see Senator Ron Johnson come down to that facility as well. How important is that to make sure that people are aware of what's going on? That human error can happen, but they can remedy it very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, election officials spend a lot of time preparing for this, but we're talking about thousands of people, tens of thousands of people running elections, doing the counting.
Over the next several days, because some of these states, like Pennsylvania, which could be the common denominator for the race for the White House, will be counting for tonight into tomorrow, potentially over the next several days. What are you looking at over the next several days? What are you focusing on?
The biggest thing that concerns me is actors out there, particularly foreign actors, that may be just trying to rile up anger on both sides and disrupt, how we operate as Americans and our trust in this electoral process, in the political process. And so, if something is out there and it's really getting you fired up, that's the most important place to take a step back and ask yourself, is this person just trying to make me angry? Is this social media post or wherever you're hearing it, is this just where something that's trying to wind me up? And that's the most dangerous piece of misinformation over the next couple of days. This process, we knew what was going to happen. We've known for months that this was going to play out. Pennsylvania was going to take a long time. Wisconsin will take a little bit of time, not quite as long as Pennsylvania, probably, maybe a few other states. But be patient and don't fall for those folks who are just trying to rile you up.
In general, Chris, I got to ask you, does it seem like the process is moving quicker this time around compared to 2020? And is that because of all of those mail-in ballots 4 years ago?
It's moving quicker for a number of reasons. One, we're not in the middle of a pandemic, so election workers don't have to social distance and all those other things that got in the way of moving quickly. Election officials learn lesson from every election, so they have gotten better. They've changed their procedures. They got more people, trained them to do things a little quicker, a little faster, all of those things. But yeah, a big factor is that there are fewer mail ballots. They have those extra steps to process them, especially in those places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, where they don't get the head start of being able to do that before Election Day.
All right, very good. Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It's glad, I think many people are, that it is going smooth here on Election Day, very critical election. I appreciate your time. We're continuing to follow the latest, but thanks again for joining us here on a busy day.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's continue on covering all the latest here on Live Now from Fox on this election day. As we do want to get to more race calls in terms of the race, the push for the White House. Another one out of New Mexico in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris, 52 to 46. The check mark next to her name, those 5 electoral votes going to her. And I also want to talk about Oregon one more time. Harris getting that state as well, 8 electoral votes for her over the former President Donald Trump. All right, we're also monitoring, like we talked about time and time again, that balance of power in the Senate. We do have a new live pick right up now in Pennsylvania of this in terms of a watch party for Dave McCormick, the Republican in that state. And I do want to put up just this, a post of what's coming up in terms of this race in Pennsylvania over incumbent Bob Casey. It is a very tight margin, but a 2-point lead right now at this point for Dave McCormick. The AP has not called it yet, but it is getting closer to the finish line. 80% of the votes have been counted at this point. 2.7 million to 2.6 million in terms of that. All right, we're following all the latest here on this Live Now from Fox. Let's slide away for another quick two.
Black Friday football on Prime is back. An old school rivalry for a new game day. Touchdown! I'm here all day! The Raiders. The Chiefs. All the way for the touchdown. Friday, November 29th. Black Friday football. Kickoff at 3 p.m. Eastern. Pre-game at 1:30 p.m. Only on Prime.
Hey there, it's me, Winona Earp of the Demon Killing Herbs. I'm currently on a road trip with my main tip, Doc Holliday.
I will never break a promise to my girl. We are Tennessee bound.
As for Purgatory, there are more tales to tell.
Dealing with a witch here, warlock.
It's all too weird. I'm thinking more Angel of Mercy.
Welcome to the Freak Show. Hope you brought popcorn.
At Amazon, we're helping customers more easily discover products that meet sustainability standards and support our commitment to help preserve the natural world. We collaborate with trusted certifications, including Regenerative Organic Certified, whose organic products support healthy soil, worker well-being, and animal welfare. Join us in supporting regenerative organic agriculture and the sustainability journey we are all on together. Shop your values on Amazon.com.
Back here to Live Now from Fox here on this election night. I'm the host, Andy Mack. We appreciate you joining us as we approach midnight on the East Coast, as we are getting closer and closer in terms of that call for the White House. I do want to put up just this, another state going in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris, this being Virginia right now. The AP calling this in favor of her, 51% to 47%. You can see the electoral amounts on that left side portion of your screen. The 270 needed to win, 230 right now in favor of the former President Donald Trump, 205. It's going to be a very, very close one in terms of this. So we're following that very, very closely. I do want to give you another race call, a call that we've really already seen the speaker for this, the senator out of Texas, Ted Cruz, the AP finally calling this one. It is a sizable margin right now at this point, 54% to 44%, some 5.25 million votes for Ted Cruz in that state. We've already seen him speak to supporters there on the ground in that state. So I just wanted to give you an update on what we're seeing in terms of that state in Texas. But we're following all the latest here on this on Live Now from Fox. Let's continue. Let's bring in my colleague Austin Westfall, because we did see Ted Cruz being called, but Virginia going for Harris, and we're expecting to hear from Dave McCormick potentially in a little bit. We do have a live picture of that. Give me a breakdown of what we're seeing in terms of the Electoral College. What are we looking at right now, Austin?
So let's start off, before we get to the Electoral College, let's start off with the Senate map, because Texas going to Cruz, that is going to matter in the grand scheme of things. As things sit right now, Republicans have 49 out of the 50 seats that they need in order to get a split in the Senate. If they get 50-50, then that means that the vice president would be the tiebreaker. That means if J.D. Vance becomes the vice president, he would give the edge to the Republicans in the Senate. If Tim Walz becomes the vice president, that means the Democrats would become the party in power in the Senate. But right now, there are so many, Andy, so many of these blue seats that are competitive. They only need one more. They only need one more. The Republicans need one more seat to win in order to get to what they need to get to. So, and what we'll say here is Republicans do have 50. So yes, if they win the presidency, what that's going to mean is that they are going to control the Senate. If they get one more, that's going to confirm the fact that they've gotten the Senate. So,
yeah.
Let's look at.
Let me cut you off real quick, because that was a great breakdown. But we do see Colin Allred now at the microphone after Ted Cruz secured that victory. Let's put this up one more time just to give you a sense of what's going on. Ted Cruz taking it over him. Now the concession speech coming from Colin Allred there in Texas. Let's listen in to him and what he has to say here on Live Now from Fox.
Becoming rarer and rarer. I was inspired to run partly because of what I saw on January 6th. What happened when people lie about a free and fair election because they weren't happy with the results. I said then, and I'll say it now, you can't just be a patriot when your side wins. So tonight, we didn't win, but we will continue to be patriots. Isn't that right? I want to thank every single Texan, every single American who got involved in this race, but especially the folks who knocked on doors, who made phone calls, who gave whatever they could to this campaign. You know, I come from a family where we didn't have a lot of money. And so I know what it means when somebody sends in $5 or $10. It's an act of hope. And I appreciate them. And I really especially want to thank all the incredibly brave Texas women who've come forward and told their stories. Amanda Zorowski, Kate Cox, Lauren Miller, Dr. Austin Denard, Taylor Edwards, I could keep going. There are so many brave Texas women who've told their stories. And Allie and I will never forget them, and we will never stop fighting to overturn this abortion ban here in Texas. I carry 3 little rocks with me that my sons picked out on the playground. They represent my 2 kids and my wife, Allie. My boys are little. They're 3 and 5. I haven't seen them as much as I'd like to, and this, for someone who grew up not knowing their father, that's a big deal to me. So I want to say a special thank you to my family, to my mother and father-in-law who have done so much child care.
Yes.
To the folks who mean the most to me. I ran for my boys, and I'm going to keep fighting for my boys' future, and for every Texas kid's future. And I hope y'all will too. There's a quote from Churchill that's been kicking around in my head that I'll probably mess up. But it said that courage is rightly esteemed as the first of human qualities. Because as has been said, it's the quality that guarantees all others. You have to have courage. It took courage, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but it took courage for me to come from a single parent household without a lot of money to the United States Congress. It took courage for these, thank you. It took courage for these Texas women to come forward and talk about the most difficult moment of their lives in front of thousands of people. It took courage for each and every one of you and everyone who got involved in this campaign, to, even though we haven't won here in Texas in some time, to believe in this election and to put everything you had into it. And it's going to take courage for whatever comes tomorrow and the day after. This country is worth fighting for. Understand that. This state is worth fighting for. We are a great country. Nobody needs to make us great again. We are great because we are good. And we are good because that's who we are as a people. And so I don't want to see anybody putting their heads down. I want you to put your shoulders back and your head up and walk out of here tall that you participated in an American election. That's what we do. Because in this country, we don't settle our differences in the streets. We don't settle it with violence. We settle it at the ballot box. And if we don't win, then we dust ourselves off and we come back the next time. Okay? I don't know what's going to happen in any of the other races around the country. But I know this. It's going to require patriots like all of you and people all across our state and our country to stay engaged. This 250-year project of ours is one that is very tenuous. Every generation of Americans is responsible for keeping it going for another generation. We are not going to be the ones who drop the baton. And whatever happens in this election, I want you all to remember who we are. Don't ever lose sight of it. Don't ever let anybody tell you that it's not who we are. And I want to thank you again. God bless you. God bless Texas. And may God continue to bless the greatest country in the history of the world, the United States of America. Thank you so much.
All right, just listening in there, Colin Allred, slightly dejected, but he says he will continue to fight for the people of Texas there, as this going in favor of Senator Ted Cruz, the incumbent, winning that battle, a very hard-fought battle in Texas. Of course, I just want to put this up again here on Live After Fox on election night of what has come to the conclusion. Ted Cruz there by 10 points, 84% counted. The AP calling it in favor of him. I do want to take you out to another Senate race in terms of Minnesota, as Amy Klobuchar, the incumbent there in Minnesota, taking that race. The check mark next to her name over Royce White, nearing 1 million votes in favor of her there in Minnesota as well. So we're following that very, very closely. We're also monitoring several different shots, including in Pennsylvania right now, an election update coming out from there in just a matter of moments. They've had one nearly every hour. Also a live look in Westlake, Ohio, I believe, at David McCormick, Pennsylvania, excuse me, David McCormick's rally there. So we'll take you out to these in just a little bit. But let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break.
Fire TV has so many great recommendations.
Yeah, it serves up the best options from all my apps in one place. It's like it knows what I want to watch before I do.
The orangutans have escaped the zoo. They're everywhere! Picture quality is amazing. So lifelike.
Yeah, you can search by genre, movie, actor.
Huh, that's convenient.
Alexa, show me the latest hit movies.
Sweet.
Get into more of what you're into with Fire TV. Get dewy skin with me for fall.
wonder. One of the greatest musicians ever to walk this planet.
He could define our own reality. That album taught me to dream.
This is the wonder of Stevie.
Someone tried to hack the Pentagon.
I gotta change the law. I have to stop this. You keep asking questions, and I'll kill you.
All right, welcome in here to Live and Now from Fox. Approaching midnight on the East Coast, the ballots will continue to be tabulated across the country. I do want to put up just some of these Live Now looks. One in Howard University, the site of this Kamala Harris watch party. You can see two very different vibes there in Washington, D.C., but also in West Palm Beach, Florida, the site of former President Donald Trump's watch party. So plenty to get to in terms of all of these races. For the White House, we're hearing race calls minute by minute. We're taking you as soon as the AP, the Associated Press, does call those. We'll bring it to you in real time as soon as they happen. We do want to talk about the balance of power, though, right now in terms of the most critical state in this race, that is Pennsylvania. I want to put up this one, Dave McCormick holding a lead over Bob Casey, the incumbent Democrat at this point right now, just under 2 points in favor of Dave McCormick, the Republican right now. Let's bring in Austin Westfall to give us a breakdown, the latest on this balance of power in terms of the upper Congress, upper state of Congress being the Senate. What do you make? What are we learning?
We're learning a lot, and as you just showed on your screen, Andy, we're talking about McCormick being up by roughly 2 points over Bob Casey. Bob Casey, an incumbent in Pennsylvania, 82% of the vote has been tallied. We're also seeing some results in from Montana as well. Tim Sheehy, so far, outpacing with 14% of the vote in so far, a legacy Democrat in Montana in John Tester. Still a lot of votes to count, but nonetheless, Sheehy has a wide margin, at least in the initial phases of this. So let's pull up our map. Let's look at the balance of power. Right now, this is the important number. Republicans, they've got 50 right now. That's what they needed in order to get half. That means if Trump wins the presidency, J.D. Vance becomes the vice president. That means he's the tiebreaker. That means Republicans would have control of the Senate in that scenario. But as...
Oh, shit. My fault, y'all. My fucking dumbass. What dumbass?
Over the weeks, we've been talking about what the most consequential races are in the Senate. We've been discussing how this thing could play out and that it was likely that the Republicans might gain control of the Senate. But I think Rich, and we'll have him on in a moment here, I think...
Before we get to that, Austin, I just wanted to cut you off a little bit because I believe we're just seeing Amy Klobuchar at the microphone. Of course, she did take that, the incumbent Democrat there. We did see her just a little bit here live now from Fox. As you can see, she might be stepping away from the podium, so we're going to take you out to that in just a second. But Austin, let's get back to your comments because let's bring in Rich Rubino right now because Amy Klobuchar clearly wrapping up that speech. She did earn the title there in that Senate seat, retaining that seat over Royce White. Let's bring in Rich Rubino right now, political analyst. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Austin was breaking it down very great about the balance of power, what we're seeing right now. What do we make of the landscape on this election night, Rich?
A couple things. It's very competitive right now, and Republicans seems to be having an advantage. A state like Pennsylvania, I think that the thought process was that Senator Casey probably would eke out another term. He was elected in 2006. He actually defeated incumbent Rick Santorum, and then he was reelected in 2012, reelected in 2018. Now it looks like there's a possibility he may lose that seat. Ohio, That was a state that Sherrod Brown had to run ahead of the national ticket. He had to run ahead of Vice President Harris, and he had to distance himself from the party. In many respects, he tried to hug President on issues like President Trump, that is, and issues like trade. This is a state that the last two elections went 8 points for Donald Trump. This time around, looks like he was not able to do that, and he apparently lost that race. Montana's an interesting race because Steve Daines is the chairman of the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee, and he's the other senator from Montana. He's really made this kind of his flagship race, defeating his colleague from Montana, John Tester. It's a state that went about 16 points last time for Donald Trump, so he's really somewhat of a survivor, having been elected and re-elected there.
And I'd like to remind the audience, why are we talking about this so much? Why is the balance of power in the Senate critical to how powerful a president we're talking about?
Well, in order for the president to get his legislation passed, it has to pass both the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. There are other things the president can do unilaterally. There are executive agreements he can negotiate with other countries, and he can certainly negotiate with other countries. And he can certainly sign executive orders. But for the most part, he needs the compliance of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. And at some point in the United States Senate, there might be a movement by Donald Trump to try to get rid of the filibuster if they have all Republicans agreeing on that. The filibuster essentially makes it harder for legislation to get through because you need 60 votes really instead of 50.
Yeah, and let me ask you about that because you mentioned some of the things that could be in place if it is a Republican White House, but also a red House and Senate. How consequential could that be?
Very consequential. It could be very much that they're going to be butting heads. You'll have Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries from New York, central-left Democrat, taking on the Republican Majority Leader. It could be Rick Scott, who was just handily reelected tonight, the senator from Florida, or it could interestingly be John Thune. John Thune was a senator from South Dakota, and in 2004, he was elected against Tom Daschle. Tom Daschle was the incumbent Democrat, and Tom Daschle was at the time the Senate Majority Leader, and part of the message he had was that he could do more for South Dakota as a leader of the United States Senate than a freshman senator. Now we have a scenario where probably the front runner is John Thune, and John Thune himself could become the majority leader of the United States Senate. So one of those two, those are of course, in the case of John Thune, he's very much kind of an establishment Republican. It'll be interesting to see if Donald Trump is elected, how he will deal with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is obviously demonstrably popular with the conservative base and certainly with Republicans in South Dakota. But he really needs to get to use Congress in order to get any legislation passed. And it'll be interesting schism between the establishment Republican Party, Mitch McConnell and John Thune, and kind of the insurrectionist new right, if you will, of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
We're still awaiting some pertinent race calls in battleground states on the presidential race side. We'll get to that in a moment, Rich, but I just want to ask you in general, if history is any indicator, how long could it take before we know the balance of power in the lower chamber, the House?
It usually takes assuming it's a close race like this, it can take a long time because there are a lot of races that are going to be very close. The state of Maine, for example, they use instant runoff voting or ranked choice voting, so they have one congressional race in the 2nd District of Maine, which would be very competitive. That could take a while for them to count, but there are usually a couple of congressional districts that it can take 2-3 weeks to go until they finally have a winner of that race. If it's going to be very close. I think that obviously the races that are close, they're close for a reason because they're usually in very competitive congressional districts. A lot of those are in upstate New York or in the suburbs of New York City, as well as many of them out in California as well. So my guess is there are probably going to be about 10 seats that are probably going to take a while until we actually find out who the winner is going to be. And there's probably going to be 1 or 2 seats that we might not find out till January.
All right, it's going to be a while for that. Some of the states we've heard being called already. Some other ones are going to be taking quite some time. And one that might take quite some time is the Senate race in Pennsylvania. I want to put up this just as we continue to get votes in here. This one in Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick going up against Bob Casey, a 3-term incumbent. We've already seen Sherrod Brown eventually lose his battle in Ohio to Bernie Moreno. What do we make of some of these flips? Because some of these guys have been in Congress for quite some time. Dave McCormick right now a 2-point lead. What do we make of this, Rich, in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and also Montana with John Tester potentially losing? What do we make of some of these flips?
what we're making of it, I think, is that kind of Democrats who are in, not the case of Pennsylvania, but certainly the case of Ohio and Montana, there's no longer split ticket voting. It used to be that you would elect a president from one party and then a member of the House of Representatives or a senator from the other party. And this is particularly true with Democrats. There's only 5 Democrats right now who represent congressional districts that were won by Donald Trump. And there's a very strong possibility that 4 of those 5 congressional districts at the end of the night could go toward the Republicans. There are just very few people that were so bifurcated that actually split their vote. I think Sherrod Brown, he's certainly won in the past, going back 2006, 2012, 2018, all which were years that were advantageous for the Democrats. 2024 apparently is not advantageous for the Democrats. And it's something that I think will certainly, and I think it certainly has deleterious effects on Sherrod Brown running for re-election. He was a very much kind of unique Democrat, very much anti-free trade, someone who's very much of a populist. In the case of Pennsylvania, very interested because I thought Senator Casey was going to be the favorite. I thought he probably was going to pull it out, but obviously there was a upswell and there was certainly probably some coattails, if you will, by President Trump. Every time Trump held a rally just about, he brought Mr. McCormick up on the stage and would present him and say, this is a Senate nominee, we want you to vote for him as well. And it looks like, all things being equal, that's apparently what had happened in the Keystone State.
All right, we're going to get back to you, Rich, in just a little bit. Thank you so much for your time, but let's quickly shift gears and talk about that in Pennsylvania right here on Live Now from Fox. We're seeing stepping up to the podium more election officials, their city commissioners in that state, a key battleground state in Philadelphia. Let's listen in to what they have to say here on Live Now.
We will not stop until we are finished. Thank you.
He cut that shit short. He mad.
We still have in-person results coming in, so it's still hard to predict turnout. But what we do know is of the 202,000 mail ballots that we've received, not all of those will count because some of them are unsigned or undated. But we will have another update of mail ballots later this evening, and we're going to continue updating the in-person results as they're coming in.
Do you know what divisions are still outstanding?
Well, again, we will report them as they come in. Get election night, yes, a lot of logistical challenges. You get everybody just receiving all the results. We will post them up on our website. Thank you.
Sorry. Could you get those numbers once more? It was a little pain back. I apologize.
Oh, sure. So our mail results, 202,713. The polling place numbers were 437,427. And our posted mail results that we have on the website is 165,000. And again, our website is vote.phila.gov/results. And we will post them on a rolling basis, and we will continue till we stop. Till we're done. Thank you.
All right, an update there from officials in Philadelphia talking about this, how they'll post updates in a rolling basis, as this is one of the most critical states, live picture right now, courtesy of the AP, of what we're continuing to follow. Dave McCormick there up by, as the margin may slimmed a little bit by this latest batch, 49.4 to 48.1 in terms of that U.S. Senate race there. The incumbent Bob Casey, an uphill battle against Dave McCormick. All right, we'll follow this very, very closely. I do want to give you some race calls really quickly before we get to an interesting one. In Hawaii, this one going in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris. The check mark next to her name for electoral votes as it just closed. Polls just closed on that side. Also, the U.S. Senate there in Hawaii going for Mazie Hirono. So that is in terms of the Senate in Hawaii. Just wanted to bring you that. And we're also following right now in Nebraska. Deb Fischer taking officially the check mark over Dan Osborne, 51.5%. 48.5%. So Deb Fischer, the Republican there. And Austin, I'm going to bring you into the conversation right now because this was a big one. Not a surprising one, but a big one. Can you talk about the meaning behind this?
This was a surprisingly competitive race. The independent in this race did put up a fight. Nonetheless, we are seeing that this seat is going to stay red. What that means is that we now have 51 Republicans confirmed to have control of the Senate. 51 means no matter what, it doesn't matter who wins the presidency, it doesn't matter who's vice president, it doesn't matter who is the tiebreaker in the Senate, the Republicans are going to control the upper chamber. There is still a question as to how much control they'll have, how many more seats can they pick up. There's still some battlegrounds. Montana, that's going to be a steep challenge for John Tester in Montana. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I'll just cycle through these really quick here before we bring in Rich Rubino. So as far as the Senate goes in Wisconsin, 78% of the votes have been counted, and we're looking at just over a 2% advantage for Eric Hovde. Talking about Michigan, that's Mike Rogers versus Alyssa Slotkin. Rogers right now has just over a 4-point lead, not even half of the votes tallied yet in Michigan. The final one I'll tease out here is Pennsylvania. As you were just talking about there, Andy, McCormick right now has just over a point lead, 84% of those votes tallied. So the question is no longer which party will gain control of the Senate. The question is, how much control will Republicans have?
All right, very good, Austin. Thank you so much. You just heard, GOP will control the Senate, but we want to take you out to a Senate seat that did go blue today, and that is in California. As we're following this, as Adam Schiff taking this one over Steve Garvey, the famous Dodger player, Padres player. He is currently at the podium making this concession speech there in the Golden State of California. Let's listen into what he has to say.
Because you have truly been the wind beneath our wings. And we love you for that. But there's one thing, I see a little blue in the audience tonight. And I assume you're at the wrong party, but I think that you're still celebrating that Dodger World Championship. You know, winning the World Championship for this 24 team was amazing. So proud of the boys, fighting at all times, playing when they're injured and didn't feel well. And then winning in Game 5.
Blah, blah, blah. Get your ass off the field.
Winning at Yankee Stadium is the next best thing. And of course, the 81 World Championship, and you remember the great infield saying Russell and Lopes and myself and Dusty Baker, and you're all going, I remember those guys.
All right, Steve Garvey, even though he did have to concede, he was noting the win by the Dodgers, so maybe a little bit of a silver lining for him in terms of that. So we're following that, and just as we said it, Adam Schiff stepping up to the podium as he did take this Senate seat in California, moving chambers from the House to the Senate. Listen to his victory speech here on Live Now.
And appreciate our different backgrounds and cultures. I've seen it firsthand. From the first day I launched this campaign to the visits I've made to nearly every corner of the Golden State. From meeting with local leaders in the border community of Calexico to seeing the restoration of redwoods north of Willits, I've met the most amazing people all across California. I've listened to your concerns, I've heard your fears, I've shared your hopes, and imagined the future that you want to see for yourselves and for your children. And because of this, every day I woke up energized and hopeful. In Bakersfield, I met with entrepreneurs who turned their passion into successful small businesses that have lifted up their communities. In Salinas, I heard from farm workers who toiled in the fields from sunrise to sundown, rain or shine, to ensure that families across the country had food on their tables. In Oakland, I felt the joy and energy of an early morning service at the Allen Temple Baptist Church. In Merced, I sat down with college students and heard about the careers they were building for themselves. In Lakewood, I saw firsthand the hard and rewarding labor of child care providers. I witnessed their patience, their kindness, and the love that they bring to their work. Our state has its struggles, like every state, but none are insurmountable because we are the Golden State and we get big things done. And my promise to you is that I'm going to deliver on day one, week one, year one, and keep on delivering for this amazing state. because together there is no challenge that we cannot overcome. We leave no community behind. We do not stop, we do not rest until all our citizens have a safe place to live, clean water to drink, clean air to breathe, safe neighborhoods to raise their children, good hospitals, clinics, and healthcare, and the best public schools in the world. In pursuit of this dream for all our people, I will not rest, California. In the Senate, I will be a champion and voice for all Californians, whether you voted for me or not, whether you live in the big city or a small county, whether you grew up here or came to America searching for a better life. We are going to build more affordable housing so that you aren't forced to choose between your rent and putting food on the table. We are going to ensure that our fellow neighbors do not have to sleep on the street. We are going to help hardworking families by lowering costs. We are going to fight tooth and nail to protect abortion access and defend democracy and our freedoms. We are going to bring resources and jobs back to the Golden State to create opportunity for all Californians. We're going to fight on behalf of our dream workers, our farm workers, our immigrant families, so they no longer have to live in the shadows. We are going to protect our planet, fight climate change, and bring good-paying green jobs here to California. It is a big task, I know, but we can do it because we are going to do it together. I am determined to fight every single day on behalf of this great state and its great people. And I am so thankful for your trust and your support. And I can't wait to do this job with you together. I want to thank my incredible wife, Eve, and yes, we are Adam and Eve. My kids, Lexi and Eli. Lexi's boyfriend, Eric, gets a shout out. My brother, Daniel, and his wife, Amy. My brother, David, and his family. My nieces and my nephews, and of course, the one the world revolves around, baby Maya. I could not have done this without your endless love and support, and it's so wonderful to get to celebrate with you tonight. Eve, I don't know where to begin, but this Adam would be lost without this Eve. I love you, and I'm grateful to you for your strength and love. Lexi and Eli, being your dad is my favorite job in the world. I love you, and I am so proud of you. And I also want to acknowledge my mother and father, Cheryl and Ed Schiff. While they're no longer with us, I wouldn't be standing here but for their love and guidance and support. My father lived to be 96. He passed earlier this year. And I so wish he could be here with us tonight. Dad, give Mom a hug and tell her I hope she's still not upset with me for not being a doctor. I also want to thank every volunteer and supporter who made calls, sent texts, knocked on doors, and chipped in a few bucks, because your hard work not only made this Senate race possible, but you are going to deliver the House of Representative Majority to Hakeem Jeffries tonight. And I want to thank Nancy Pelosi, the greatest of all time, the most incredible speaker in our history, for her friendship, her mentorship, her leadership. There was no one who stood more in the breach defending our democracy than Nancy Pelosi, and I thank you. We set out to build the largest grassroots campaign in California history, and I think we hit the mark. To my wonderful staff, I thank you. You are all dedicated public servants who committed countless hours, nights, weekends to this effort, and this victory is also yours. To my wonderful, wonderful constituents in the 30th Congressional District who've supported me for over 25 years, I cannot thank you enough for your confidence in the honor of representing you. I hope that I have served you well and made you proud. And to my new constituents all over the state, Whether you voted for me or not, I am committed to being a champion for every Californian in every corner of this wonderful state. California, I thank you for your trust. I am grateful to serve as your U.S. Senator. Now, let's get to work. Thank you, California. Thank you, everyone. God bless this state and country. Thank you so much.
That was just Adam Schiff there alongside his wife Eve after securing the Senate seat left by the late Dianne Feinstein. So you can see a happy Adam Schiff there on there, but also talking about how his hope for Hakeem Jeffries to be the majority leader in terms of the House of Representatives. Of course, we're following that, the latest here on Left and Down for Fox in terms of that Senate seat. I do want to talk more about another race call we have in terms of Nebraska and what they do. Another electoral vote going in the tally for Vice President Kamala Harris as she secured the District 2 vote, 84% coming in. So it's 230 to 210 right now, just 20 minutes past the top of the hour, 12:20 a.m. Eastern time. So we're following the latest here on all of this on Live Now for Fox. We're going to get out to more of this in terms of the race for the White House, a live look there in West Palm Beach, Florida. As you can see, some of the excitement, some of the vibes on this hand. The microphone's still set up in the very front of this. I don't know how soon we could see any speakers, but also at Howard University on that campus, the alma mater of Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll continue to follow the latest with this race for the White House. I'm Andy Mack. We're back up.
At Amazon, we're helping customers more easily discover products that meet sustainability standards and support our commitment to help preserve the natural world. We collaborate with trusted certifications, including Regenerative Organic Certified, whose organic products support healthy soil, worker well-being, and animal welfare. Join us in supporting regenerative organic agriculture and the sustainability journey we are all on together. Shop your values on Amazon.com.
Black Friday football on Prime is back. An old school rivalry for a new game day. Touchdown! I'm here all day! The Raiders. The Chiefs. Friday, November 29th. We got a game, boys! Black Friday football. Kickoff at 3 p.m. Eastern. Pre-game at 1:30 p.m. Only on Prime.